is part of the suffering the resistance to accept the situation?
Yes.
Even if it wasn't your fault, because this is sometimes people conflate this idea of acceptance with justification. I'm not saying justification. I'm saying accept this is the situation you find yourself in.
Yeah. I think that's very, very astute and very real. I think there's a step before acceptance. So there's a number of steps before acceptance, but the first one is acknowledgement. Like, I think you have to acknowledge that something is happening before you can start, because acceptance has to do with adjusting your emotional state and reaction to it, changing the level of tension in your body about it. Like every time I've ever gone to the dentist, there's this part of me, it's like, oh, here comes, oh God, here comes, this is gonna hurt, here comes, and it's like, I'm ready, I'm bracing, and I have to remind myself, like, wait, stop, don't do that.
Yeah.
Stop, soften, 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 over and over, soften. And it's one of the reasons I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Because when you're a white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, everything is like resisting everything, trying to stop everything. And then you start to learn, like, oh, no, like soften, like yield, like just, protect the neck, move the hand. Okay, go ahead, try and choke me. Like, you're not gonna do it. Like, and there's something about that, like, not trying to resist the thing. But
trust. What you were saying there about
trust in how natural something is, but it's acknowledging first, okay, here is the reality of my situation. This marriage is ending. Like, there's a Zen parable or saying I heard many years ago, which is, if you don't learn to find joy in the snow, you will have less joy in your life and precisely the same amount of snow. The reality is reality. Like, I broke my favorite teacup. I can be happy about that. I can be angry about that. I can be sad about that. Either way, my teacup is gone. It's gone. That's it. Like, and so I think that the acceptance piece first requires, okay, my life is finite. My life is finite. My marriage is not permanently gifted to me. Love is not permanently gifted, it is loaned. Whether it's the life of my life, the love of my dog, the love of my romantic partner, the love of my children, it is on loan to me, it is not permanently gifted. So that's just acknowledgement first. Then it's not pulling from that, yielding from, like, it's about softening and realizing that, okay, so now what do I do with this? Like, what do I do? There's something about, my therapist once said to me, we were talking about like resisting change in life. I was going through a transition in life and I was having a hard time with it. And he said, you're very curious. He said, you try to like swim against the current and it's not gonna work. Or you just let go and let yourself go with the current, and that's not gonna work. So you try to like, I'm gonna be the ocean, and that doesn't work. He's like, surf. He's like, surf. He's like, surfing is kind of the perfect balance. Like, you're not trying to fight the wave, you're trying to take it where it's gonna take you. But you're going to impose yourself on the process a little. You're gonna use technique, patience, you're gonna use your body, and you're gonna try to just see, because there's an element in surfing, just like in jiu-jitsu, just like in so many things in life, of like yielding, but also maintaining an active role, right? And I think that is in the demise of a relationship or the loss of someone because of death, or again, any transition, any ending. First, it's about acknowledging the reality of what we had, what we were, what our health was, whatever it might be. And then saying, okay, and now this has changed. And I can resist it or I can yield to it. I can accept that this is what's happened. It is snowing. My teacup is broken, whatever it is. And then you can see what's next. Because again, we don't know what's next. We don't know what that will lead to. Like some of the worst things, some of the moments in my life where I went, oh my God, I'm never getting through this, gave way to some of the greatest moments in my life. Like just when the caterpillar thought its life was ending, it became a butterfly. you know? But the world had to end. Like, imagine being the bird in the egg. You know, you've been warm and happy. Imagine being in the womb. Like, you're warm, you're happy, everything's being fed to you. It's like lovely, you're just buoyant and floating around. And now, if you're that bird, you gotta break through a shell and get into this cold, weird world and you don't know how your wings work yet. Or if you're a baby, it's like all blood and screaming. But you gotta do that to get to the next thing. And the next thing is beautiful. Like, the bird only gets to fly because it broke through the egg. And it only broke through the egg because it was brave enough to destroy the only world it's ever known. And that's how I look at divorce in some ways, is that divorce is like this whole, whether I'm the one ending it or my partner is the one ending it, like, something is ending that I never thought was gonna end. And it's done. And now what? I don't know. I don't know what. But I have no reason to think it's gonna be horrifying. It might be incredibly beautiful, but it's the road ahead of me now. And that, to me, there's something very beautiful about that level of acceptance.
But the lights are off. The lights are off on that road. It's a road with no street lamps. Yeah. And that's what the uncertainty of...
Yeah, it's scary.
It's scary, right? Humans are particularly bad with dealing with uncertainty. I learned this when I studied Uber Labs, which is this laboratory they had at Uber to figure out how to build the perfect taxi app. And they discovered that much of the reason why we love Uber is because it kills the uncertainty that we used to have when we called a taxi on the phone, and then we had to stand there for 7 or maybe 17 minutes, hoping that it was coming. And it's the same analogy you might find if you go to an airport and it says flight is delayed. Now, flight delayed is much worse than flight delayed 2 hours. Yeah. Because I can work with that.
Yeah.
But flight delayed, with no certainty around how long I'm going to be stood in this airport for, is like mental torture. And it's the same.
And the truth is, there is something. I'm not Pollyanna about it. Like, there is something terribly frustrating, upsetting, difficult about your flight being delayed or your flight being canceled, for example. But in Frankfurt, Germany, I think it's the best meal of my entire life at a little tiny restaurant. I only had that meal because I was flying back from Poland and had a stop in Frankfurt that was supposed to be for 1 hour. And because of snow, they canceled all the flights essentially to the United States. And I was stuck in Frankfurt for the night. Now, I certainly had a few moments of like, are you kidding me? Like, I have work, I have this, I have that. But then something in me went, okay, like, you can be upset about this all you want, man, but it ain't gonna make the flights happen. And you can't walk home from Frankfurt. So what are you gonna do? You've not been in Frankfurt before. See what happens.